What's up, ladies and gentlemen, kings and queens, gods and goddesses? Today I got an interesting topic. I want to talk about transgenders. Should denying or hating transgenderism be a crime? Meaning, should you be prosecuted against or charged for discriminating or hating a transgender? I'm going to touch on a couple bullets. First one being, what is a transgender? Should the transgenders use biological restrooms, meaning if they're a man, go to the man's restroom. If they're technically a woman, go to the woman's restroom. Also, what is the difference between a transgender and a transsexual? Uh, Also, want to touch on um, the people who are pushing this whole issue right now. Is it something weird about that, or is it just coincidence, or is it something that they really actually trying to do because they want equal rights? All right. What is a transgender? According to Wikipedia, a transgender is someone denoting or relating to a person whose self identity does not conform unambiguously to conventional notions of male or female gender. Okay. Now, per John Hopkins, uh, you can go on their website and check this out. They've pretty much summed it up as being a mental disorder, and the sex change biologically is impossible. Per Dr. Paul R. McHugh, the former psychiatrist and in chief for the John Hopkins Hospital, and his current distinguished service professor of psychiatric evaluations and assignments, he said that transgenderism is a mental disorder, quote unquote, that marriage treatments, that sex change is biologically impossible, quote unquote, and that people who promote sexual reassignment surgery are collaborating and promoting a mental disorder. Now, our next question is, do you believe that transsexuals should be allowed to use whatever their gender change restroom is, or should they use the biological gender restroom? In the state of Alabama right now, they've passed a law that prohibits anyone not using the biological gender restroom. Okay, Alabama right now is totally against it. That's probably one of the worst states that you want to be a part of if you're what they consider a transsexual. Okay. Now, should in the state of California right now and North Carolina, they just passed a law, um, excluding any discrimination against a transgender or a transsexual. Okay. So in the state of California and North Carolina, they've officially passed the laws across the board. What's the difference between being a transgender or a transsexual and having an intersex condition? People who identify as transgender or transsexual are usually people who are born with a typical male or female anatomy, but feel as though they've been born into the wrong body. For example, a person who identifies as transgender or transsexual may have a typical female anatomy, but feel like they feel like a man inside, or a man is seeking to come out of them. So they start taking hormones, uh, or they also start having sex reassignment surgeries, surgeries, getting parts removed. All right, people who have intersex conditions have an anatomy that is not considered typically male or female. It's just, I don't know what they consider, but it's not considered either of those scientifically. Most people with the intersex conditions come to medical attentions because doctors or parents notice something unusual about them. And in contrast, people who are transgender have an internal experience or gender identify, or gender trouble identifying what their gender identity is. That's the difference from most of the people. Many people confuse transgenders and transsexuals. I know I do. I know it's not hard. That's the thing. That's the trouble. Is it going to be something that they have to come across the board and say that, hey, I'm really a man, or I'm really a woman. I don't know. That's for the people to decide. Um, people with people with the intersex conditions, though, because they see two groups of people who would like to choose their own genders and identities, and sometimes those choices require hormonal treatments and surgeries. These are similarities. It's also true that some people who have intersex conditions also decide to change genders at some point in their life. That's just usually how it goes. Some people with the intersex condition might also identify themselves as a transgender or a transsexual. So it's either or. I guess there's really no difference, is what we're trying to determine. In spite of these similarities, these two groups should not be and cannot be thought of as one. I guess that's really how you determine. But I always thought if they had an anatomy change, doesn't that also mean that it changes their sexuality or who they have sex with? So that's kind of confusing in a sense in this definition. Only a small portion of intersex people experience these problems, though. It's very important to understand that the differences between these two groups, because in spite of some similarities, they face many different struggles, including different forms of discrimination. That's what we're getting at. Is it okay to discriminate, or should they have equal rights, laws? The difference between transgenders and transsexuals and intersex have been understood by lawmakers in countries like Australia. They have it figured out there as far as what it's completely classified as. Lawmakers publicly acknowledge that people with intersex conditions have a distinct need from the people who identity as transgender or transsexual. Now we have children as young as 5 years old getting surgery these days. I mean, should there be a law against that? Should there be repercussions for the parents on getting their child a sex change? I think that a child should be able to at least grow up. I see that they're trying to prevent possible issues and discrimination, so just nip it in the bud. But I think a child should be allowed to grow up and make that decision for themselves, that the parents shouldn't do it, okay? Because I don't think a child at 5 years old knows completely what they want. That's just my opinion. Now, transsexualism is also been said by John Hopkins just to be a desire. It's basically gender dysphoria within the gender, okay, and that's all on John Hopkins' website. But we have a few people who's pushing for all these things to change, like Laverne Cox, Bruce Jenner, of course. Then you have Camille Cabral in Brazil, who's a big time advocate for transgender women, and also was one of the first elected officials. So that's pretty big for transgenderism right now. So the question basically remains, should denying or hating or discriminating against transgenderism be a crime? Should you be charged for it? Should you be able to get jail time for giving your opinion or giving how you feel or your thoughts? I think long as it's not violent, any type of violent crime, there shouldn't be anything done to anyone. That's just how you feel. If you're not comfortable with it, there are certain states that they've already did percentages and ratios on that are completely scared of transgender male or females. It just freaks them out. That's something you can go check out. So thanks, guys, for watching. Remember, knowing is better than believing. Study to find out any information you need. It's out there. Don't just go off of what anybody just says. We are the enlightened ones. We are the Illuminati. Peace.